Let's try out some of the new products from the Isamaya Beauty relaunch at Sephora, while we talk about where the brand has been, where I think it's going, and how I think it fits into the mix of Sephora. But before we start, I am Ian Jacob. I have worked in beauty and skincare retail, and I've also worked as a brand ID consultant and graphic designer for a marketing firm that mainly worked with beauty brands and pro MUAs. In that time, I learned a lot about formulations and the industry as a whole, and how it affects the user and how users perceive the value of certain products. You can now find me on social media at I am Ian Jacob, where I create beauty content, lifestyle content, and fragrance content for you guys to enjoy. So feel free to follow me on pretty much any platform you can think of, again, at I am Ian Jacob. And a little bit about why I'm doing my first long-form content here on YouTube about Isamaya Beauty is because of how the brand launched and when it launched relative to my life and my trajectory. Right before the launch of the original Isamaya Beauty, I had gone through a tough time in my life where I stopped expressing my queerness through makeup, especially in real life, and had taken a bit of a hiatus from social media. And when the original Industrial 1.0 collection launched, I immediately was pulled back into the experience of using makeup, playing with makeup, and expressing myself in that way. But now let's talk about where Isamaya Beauty has been. The original Isamaya Beauty launched with a bit of a weird collection of products. There was a skincare adjacent serum called Skin Lack that had shimmer in it to make you really, really glow, almost look sweaty. They also had a laminated brow gel called Brow Lack, a super inky black mascara called Rubber Lash, a purpley black lip gloss called Lip Lack that almost appeared like this grungy bruised lip, and of course the iconic Industrial 1.0 palette that a lot of us probably know and love. At the time of the launch, this palette really showed me that this was a brand that, despite how young it was willing to spend time in the lab, because nearly all of these shadows are a completely unique formula from one another. And they included a wide variety of finishes, from satins to metallic flakes to transparent shimmers, and even black and black adjacent putty shades. It was a fascinating color story in a time when eye makeup palettes were dwindling in sales and becoming quite repetitive and redundant. And a lot of influencers were talking about how we didn't need the latest eye palette because we probably already had those shades. So this one really stood out, even though it was online only and not super accessible, at a whopping $100+. Now, this palette was not particularly user-friendly. You really had to study each shade because the formulas performed so differently. Overall, I would say most of the shades are really high quality, though. This launch also included merch that I found quite fascinating. This is actually one of the original earrings. It was really exaggerated, and you can tell the brand wanted to pull people into the ethos really early on. Their next launch was the Wildstar collection, which felt like a largely necessary reach for a more general audience. They wanted to reach people that were a little bit less alternative and a little bit more mainstream. The flagship of the collection was yet another eye palette, which was a fascinating choice again in a time when eye palettes were dwindling in sales. The color story was much more accessible, and so were the formulas. It had fewer finishes and much more familiar finishes and performance to what we had seen from other brands on the market. These formulas did not wow me as much as the Industrial palette did, but that's largely because I was at a point in my makeup journey where I was looking for something new. And this felt largely safe. But that did a beautiful job of pulling in more average beauty users that weren't going to be as scared of this palette as they would be of the Industrial 1.0. They also did stick highlighters, another mascara, which I found a bit odd, especially for such a young brand. And they also launched metallic lipsticks, which at that time were really not popular and not quite making a comeback yet. But you can tell the attention to packaging and detail still existed within the brand, and it was all about high concept and unique approaches to beauty. For me, I think the brand really hit its stride when it launched the Lips collection, expanded the Lip Lack collection, and launched Industrial 2.0. This palette again showed me that they were willing to take risks in the eye category, but also spend time in the lab. They created a lot more refined but still fascinating formulas in a super interesting and unique color story. Ultimately, a really inspiring color story, at a time when a lot of palettes weren't doing anything new or interesting. To this day, I see so many influencers still grabbing for this palette because there's unique shades that you just can't really find anywhere else. The Lips line also showed us that they were willing to take a big risk. Not so much with this, but with these. These refillable components are some of the best engineered components I've seen in the beauty industry. They are heavy, they are high shine, they are easy to refill. And for me, they fed into a rebellious nature that I, as a man in the beauty space, can really relate to. Overall, they released a lot of different formulas, from sheer sparkly balms to a more traditional matte lipstick, and even a black balm called Vanity that was really, really popular. Piggybacking on the popularity of the original lip black that was kind of a purpley black shade. At this point, the brand solidified that they were willing to commit to the bit, commit to a high concept, and deliver performance and quality, whether it be quality formulas or packaging. This specific era really showed me that they had refined their internal practices and refined their vision and refined their time in the lab as well. Because this palette outperforms this palette and feels a lot like a more grown-up older sister to it. At this point, they were still doing very few things, but they were doing it better and more concise with a clearer vision. And they were beginning to find hero products that people could carry around with them all day to further draw people into the ethos of the brand. When I heard that the brand was going to relaunch with Sephora, I immediately kissed these guys goodbye and began to ponder about how the brand would relaunch, what the branding would be, what the products would be, and what their trajectory would be. And again, how they'd fit into a Sephora, which we'll get to later. Its origins as an alternative artistry brand with high concepts and unique formulas was going to be a tough transition to take into Sephora. Sephora is a space that largely leans towards the mainstream, and in my experience, they don't tend to take very high risks in pulling new types of people into that mainstream. As well, Sephora has high standards for how brands enter their space and the scale that they can produce at to sustain the desire, which was going to be an issue for a brand with really unique packaging that was going to be hard to scale and formulas that were likely going to be hard to scale as well. Concepts like this were not going to make the cut. Neither was packaging like this because it's just not scalable. It's hard to ship, it's more expensive than necessary, etc. The lips line, though, and the lip blacks did make it into the Sephora relaunch, which I think was very, very smart because these are items that people could already fall in love with and carry around wherever they go. But they needed to find a way to expand this niche and pull that niche into the Sephora space. And they needed to find a unique way to communicate that in an industry that is run by social media influencers. The founder of the brand, Isamaya Beauty, in my opinion, is the antithesis of a clean girl. I would refer to her as a cool girl. Her makeup style is high concept, it's really avant-garde, it's not something that the Hailey Biebers of the world are going to find approachable or that interesting. She's cool, she's grungy, she's unapologetic as hell. And while the clean girl aesthetic tends to run very refined, very finished, very polished, this Isamaya French cool girl aesthetic is worn in, almost worn out, and very lived in. It's applications with your fingers like you just saw me do. It's the type of makeup that looks like you already went to the club in it. It's kind of like the post-club makeup versus the pre-club makeup. Running to get a smoothie, running to catch a cab. It's not as soft, it's not as approachable, it's not as clean and easy to communicate. Especially in a space where the clean girl aesthetic has become a social signal of status. And your ability to achieve that aesthetic with a lot of work, a lot of products while making it look effortless is the go-to and kind of epitome of being a successful beauty girl. But there is space for a brand to speak to people who could not relate to that. For instance, someone with a mustache and a mullet. And there's a lot of people who found the clean girl aesthetic to be growing tired, inaccessible, boring, and somewhat toxic. And that's where the cool girl aesthetic comes in. To sum it up, we have the clean girl aesthetic that's run by soft, approachable, minimal makeup that is subtly dewy, traditionally feminine, and overall just kind of dainty and girly. And then we have the cool girl complexion, which is high gloss, lived in makeup, and one of my predictions as a trend for 2025 in the beauty space. And I think Isamaya is leading that charge, especially with her relaunch at Sephora. The relaunch at Sephora includes a color-correcting skin serum, some glossy skincare-adjacent prep products, a micro concealer of sorts to lift and cover, as well as skinny contour sticks, blush duos that have a super unique slippery formula that are paired with a highlight, a liquid liner and mascara, and lip liners that finally allow you to do a complete look using the lips products and lip lacks, which is basically everything you need to create a worn-in cool girl complexion, plus the lip and eye products necessary to create an easy go-to look, helping this line become a collection of go-to everyday products for users. And the marketing around this launch encourages you to use products in a unique way that may not be traditionally acceptable. For instance, I could easily see the lip liner going to the eyes. I could see the mascara going to the brows. They're already heavily marketing the contour stick for your lips, for your eyes, for your cheeks, everywhere. And some of the prep products are even being marketed as finishing products as well. Now, where does this Isamaya Beauty rebrand and relaunch fit into the ethos of Sephora? I think it's really important to take note of the timing. There's two other brands launching with Sephora right now that epitomize clean girl aesthetic. So to have a really well-built collection of cool girl aesthetic products to counter that clean girl aesthetic product lines is really, really smart for a retailer like Sephora to do. We have Violette FR and we have Rhode Beauty making their entry into Sephora at the same time. They epitomize soft, clean, matte vibes with a little bit of strategic glow that's really approachable to the average girly girl, while Isamaya is doing something that's industrial feeling, plastic surgery inspired, metallic, shiny, and worn in looking. So if you are a maybe 30 and below makeup user right now, there is something launching at Sephora for you. Which also means if you're headed to Sephora for Violette or Rhode, Isamaya is right there and you might be intrigued to try something new, which again is so strategic of Sephora. As far as beauty retailers go, Sephora still reigns supreme, and in a time when a lot of beauty users are kind of getting tired of repetitive launches, it is so smart to have a brand come in and shake things up. And I think socially in America and probably a lot of Europe as well, we're at a point where we really want to rebel against what we have been, especially what we have been during the pandemic and post-pandemic years. We're ready to leave that behind, and we're ready to express some of the built-up angst, anger, and resentment we have towards institutions. And social disruptions like that always feed into beauty and fashion. We are ready for carefree coolness while still feeling luxurious and still socially signaling that we are cool, we have money, we can shop, and we take care of ourselves. We can take that clean girl aesthetic, make it a little bit grungier and worn in, so it's not unfamiliar. We're still emphasizing an infusion of skincare in products. So overall, it's not night and day, but outwardly it feels very different. And in the beauty industry, how we feel about makeup is more important than performance, colors, shades, anything of that sort. And to launch products that you are encouraged to use with your fingers and use in unique ways, at a time where old aesthetics and trends start to feel restrictive, is really, really smart. I think in terms of this new core collection, they covered all the staples that they need to cover. I think a best next step for this brand is to return to their origin by launching an eye product that will wow viewers in a brick and mortar Sephora as they walk through the gondolas. By doing this, they can help to re-engage some of the previous brand loyal users that they may have lost when they moved to Sephora. But I could also see them single-handedly reviving the eye palette category. I think makeup is going to remain minimal for the coming years. So to have a palette in the light of the industrial palettes that give you a whole collection of statement-making shades is really, really important. We're past the era of all-in-one palettes where it has the crease color, the highlight, all of that. We want things that speak to our personality and our expression and our need to express ourselves and our personalities, especially during times of social disrupt. I could also see the brand launching colored mascaras, especially a mascara that could work for a bleach brow effect, and incorporating marketing that shows you that you can use mascaras for your lashes, brows, mustaches, whatever you want. I think color mascaras in general are also going to make a comeback as an easy staple to just kind of dress up and make a basic look more individual. And I think launches like that will help to solidify the brand's ID. So that is a bit about where Isamaya Beauty has been, its current relaunch at Sephora, and where I think it's going. This is a full complexion using the products. As you guys could see, I actually used the lip balm as an eye primer before I added shimmers on top. That is one of my new favorite things for a really worn-in wet lid. I skipped mascara as well because I don't have their latest one. But honestly, a more undone, raw-looking eye and complexion is kind of the vibe nowadays, especially for the Isamaya Beauty customer. This look makes it clear that I put an effort into how I look. It's done up, yet chill. It's pretty, yet a little grungy. And I think the process that you may have clocked while I was doing this complexion is a really important part of the brand's ID. I use my fingers for basically everything. It's not at all perfect. This is not the 2016 perfect cut crease. This is the antithesis of that. This is also the antithesis of I spent an hour trying to look like I have no makeup on. This is the post-club cool girl look. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Isamaya Beauty. I hope you enjoyed watching me do my makeup while I yapped. And I hope you guys are as excited for the Isamaya Beauty ethos as I am, because I think this brand shows a lot of promise, even in a space like Sephora, that is maybe the antithesis of its original vibe. If there are other brands that you guys would like me to talk about, please let me know in the comments below. And if you guys want more in-depth tutorials, beauty content, etc., make sure to find me on Shorts, Instagram, or TikTok at IamIanJacob. Oh, and make sure to subscribe here. I'm going to try to do a few of these long-form videos a month to start out, so please give me suggestions for what you guys want to see below. Bye, guys.